I recently took a look at the Galaxy Note 8 and I made a case for it in 2021. That video was more of like a feature opinions piece on why I think the Note 8 is still a fantastic phone in 2021, but today we're going to be going into more detail after using the phone for over a year as a part-time device and around 2 months as a full-time device, looking into how good is it in 2021, the software support, the performance, the battery life, everything like that, almost just a full review 2 or 3 years later. So hey guys, I'm Ryan Thomas and this is the Galaxy Note 8 in 2021. Let's first look at the pricing and availability. The device was one of the first to cost 4 figures back in 2017, and whether you're flush or not, that's a lot of money to spend on a smartphone, or so we thought. In 2021, there are loads of smartphones over $1,000, and so it's kind of normal. However, on eBay or Gumtree or whatever, you can find one of these for around £200, around $315, which is a bargain by comparison. Most of the devices that I buy for this YouTube channel or get for this YouTube channel are used, and so that is where I got the Note 8. I recommend picking one up used off of a reputable website from a reputable seller. Expect to pay around £200, which puts it below the Pixel 4a, which is what I would call the benchmark for a budget smartphone. And if you like the Note 8 but you want something a little bit better, get the Note 9 because it is significantly improved upon, but is basically the same phone in terms of its layout. The Note 8 is still a looker in my opinion. I love the symmetrical front design with curved sides and some finished bezels at the top and the bottom. This thing is made of glass and metal, which is sweet because it feels great in the hand. I personally really like the rear design of this thing too though. Sure, the capacitive fingerprint scanner isn't particularly well placed ergonomically, and we've since moved on to in-display fingerprint scanners, but I find capacitive ones like this one much more reliable and much faster, so I personally prefer them. You get a load of classic Samsung creature comforts like micro SD expansion, a 3.5mm headphone port, wireless charging, and the S Pen of course. It's not 5G capable and it doesn't have Wi-Fi 6, but from a practicality standpoint, the Note 8 is still very mumuch usable in 2021. A lot of what makes this 3.5-year-old Samsung nice to use is its fantastic display. It's a 6.3-inch Quad HD AMOLED panel, and it was huge back in the day, not so much these days, but it's still a sizable screen if you've got smaller hands. It's not 90Hz and it's not the most responsive, but it does look stunning thanks in part to the high brightness, but also to the high contrast ratio and brilliant colours. Take it from someone who has used a lot of displays in smartphones over the past 3 or 4 years and who's using the Note 8 on a day-to-day basis, the Note 8's display is really good. See, when this thing came out, it was running Samsung Experience, was kind of an evolution of TouchWiz. It was rather heavy and ugly. One UI 1 though is a fantastic redesign to the point where it's transformed the phone. I've said this before and I'll say it again, but One UI 1 on the Galaxy Note 8 is one of the best software transformations that I've ever seen. There is a downside though, it is Android 9, nothing newer. It's extremely unlikely we'll ever see anything newer than that on the Note 8. This means a couple of things. One, it's quickly losing support, which means that security vulnerabilities and incompatibilities could become a problem down the line. Two, on the other hand, the Note 8 is still very usable going forward as long as you don't need that latest and greatest software. I know people personally who still use like Galaxy S6s and iPhone 6s on really outdated software, and they don't complain all too much, other than maybe the bad batteries in their phones. Which we have to get onto now. This is more of a weak point of the Note 8 for a number of reasons. Due to the Note 7 escapade, Samsung was more conservative with the battery capacity in the Note 8, which means that for such a huge device you only get a relatively small 3300 mAh cell. This means that even before you factor in battery degradation, which you are inevitably going to get on a used device, the battery life's never really been that good on the Note 8. For heavy users, don't expect it to last a full day whatsoever, and for lighter users, maybe a full day is possible, although I did find I had to top it up a little bit during the day, say at lunchtime for about 10 minutes. That brings us on to the charging. It's not particularly fast, but you do have two options, namely the 15 watt wired charging and the Qi wireless charging. What does this mean? Well, that you can't really charge the Note 8 the same way you would a modern smartphone, where you can top it up in around half an hour and it does almost a full charge. The Note 8 isn't going to charge very fast whether you're using a cable or not. And it's a similar story when it comes to performance. The Note 8 is relatively responsive, at least this Exynos model is. I can't speak for the US Qualcomm model. It's got 6GB of RAM and an Exynos 8895, which means that as long as you're not heavily 3D gaming or editing video or excessively using computational photography features, the Note 8 is more than usable from a performance standpoint. Playing Genshin Impact and that kind of thing just really brings this thing to a halt, and that makes sense given its age. Probably the most significant development in smartphones since the Note 8's release is their camera performance, and the Note 8 is unfortunately way behind even more modern devices in terms of hardware and software processing, so you get two 12MP cameras on the back with OIS and an 8MP selfie shooter. The Note 8 doesn't shoot the most pleasing looking images. Its drawbacks are that it's quite contrasty and shadows tend to get crushed more so than on newer devices. Also, because these sensors are so much smaller than the ones you'll see in modern smartphones, you'll be getting significantly worse low light performance. This is also a very typical old Samsung processing style with overly saturated images. Of course, there's no ultra wide either, so versatility is limited. However, like I've said about the Note 8's other features, its camera system really isn't that bad when it comes to using a phone on the cheap. The cameras are more than usable. In fact, they were some of the best from the Snapdragon 835 era, and so they're not unusable by any means. For £200, this camera system is more than usable, but you are going to have to be aware of the shortcomings going into it so that you're not disappointed that your Note 8 gets smoked by a modern Pixel 4a. And that brings us on to the question, should you still buy a Galaxy Note 8 in 2021? And as you've probably noticed from my previous video, kind of yes, it's still a good smartphone if you're looking for a cheap smartphone. However, if you can stretch that little bit extra, I really do recommend that you pick up the Note 9. It has stereo speakers, it has far better cameras, it has a much larger battery, and the screen is slightly brighter as well. It costs a little bit more, but you're getting a lot more value from that. Otherwise, the Note 8 is still a great smartphone, and if you've still got one and you're pondering updating, other than maybe the camera and performance benefits, you're not going to see a huge difference day to day, unless you're a power user. However, if you're a power user, you're probably not still using like a 3.5-year-old Samsung. Anyway, I'm going to leave this video here. Thank you all so much for watching. Please do like, dislike, comment and subscribe if you're new around here to never miss a video like this one, and check out all my links in the video description. I want to give a massive shout out to my patrons for being continually supportive. I've been Ryan Thomas and I'll catch you later. Peace.